Welcome back. You're still watching Market View. Thank you for staying with us. We continue with the program. All local banks and financial service providers were expected to have fully transitioned to the highly anticipated Eswatini payment switch platform by the 28th of last month. Launched by the central bank just last year, this innovative platform enables real-time payments, allowing transactions to be completed in seconds between two parties. This promises unmatched convenience and effortless payment exchanges. But how exactly does this platform work, and how can businesses leverage its full potential? Your questions will be answered today as business journalist Nelson Lamandla sits down with the Central Bank's Deputy Director of Operations Payment Switch, Sabelo Gama, to unpack the details of this groundbreaking platform. Let's take a listen.
Welcome to Market View, Mr. Gama. It's a pleasure having you on the show. I came to Central Bank today because I want to find out about the progress of the Eswatini payment switch, which was launched late last year. But I want us to first start by explaining to the viewer at home, what is the Eswatini payment switch?
So good afternoon to Nelsiwe and the viewers. In terms of our Eswatini payment switch, the new infrastructure that we've deployed, it's trying to sort or help Eswatini with some historical problems we've had in payments, as well as it's a bit of a future-focused solution. Maybe to make it simple, I'll just pick three things that come to mind when you think what we are trying to change. So it's a payments platform and will deliver different things at different times. So the first thing is that note that Eswatini at present have friction relating to how quick money moves from one institution to another. So speed of transaction. So if I send money, it shouldn't matter what bank I'm in or mobile money service provider, Labo Hamba Mali. It shouldn't matter, do I have an account here or there? I should just be able to send the money from this side to that side instantly. So that's the first one, speed. And then I've touched a little bit on it. The second one is a convenience one. It's a bit of a big word, the interoperability, but to be simple, it says we have banks, we have mobile money service providers, as I've said, Bohamba Mali. We want you to be able to send money from an account at a bank to a Hamba Mali, whether it belongs to Imali, Instacash, or MTN, you should be able to send the money across. And then the third item that I think would be good to keep in mind is service availability. Right now, at times, you can't send money in the evening, you can't send money on weekends. So all of that we are putting to the side. Money can be sent at all times of days, on holidays, on weekends. So I think maybe that would be a good summary of the key points that viewers might think of with the EPS.
How much can be sent through this new system, Mr. Gama?
Okay, so you can send, of course, it's aligned with your own limits at your institution. So if you're at a wallet provider, there are limits that your Hamba Mali will provide, as well as your bank. But from an EPS point of view, the EPS will not process transactions above 50,000 emalangeni. So for wallets, the limits are a bit lower at about 10,000 emalangeni. But for wallets that have met certain requirements, then again the limit is the 50,000. It's a starting point because as people learn and consumers get more aware of digital products, we will then consider moves to increase the limits. But at present, it is 50,000.
This is such a good initiative, but I'm sure businesses would want to know how much will they be charged? Will the charges be higher now? I'm sure that is what they are interested in.
So my charges, more or less, are quite similar to what you or the institutions. So we apply at Central Bank for pricing approval, as you're aware. So the pricing that they've offered on their other digital products, so internet banking, cell phone banking, and all of this. So this is then falling as it becomes part of that portfolio, which means from a pricing point of view, it's adopting the same pricing. So it's not increasing pricing in some areas. Of course, going forward, we will look to how best to then minimize the cost. But at present, it's not increasing them. It is coming in at similar pricing to current market offerings.
Fintech solutions often come with cyber threats, Mr. Gama. So I want to know, Gogo would say, what is it that you have done in that regard to ensure that the consumer is safe as they use this platform?
Part of that is, of course, there are things that will be built into the systems. So on the technical side, just to protect the systems from vulnerabilities that may arise from cybercrime, etc. But I think the bigger one that you're touching on is there's the consumer that needs to be educated in how best to protect themselves. I think we've seen recently in the media about some of the fraud tricks that have been in our market. So again, it's more about being aware of what interaction with your bank would look like, what interaction or what are the common ways of interaction with your financial service provider, even if you have problems. So I'm touching a bit on a later discussion point, which is our roadshows. Part of what we are very strong on there is the consumer education about fraud, what to look out for, how to protect your key things like your PIN, how to know whether a message comes from your bank or someone is making it look like it's coming from your bank. So various things to educate the consumer to avoid them falling into some of these pitfalls or some of these fraud scams. Mm-hmm. So the roadshows began yesterday, 31st of March, and they'll be running for 2 weeks until the 14th of April. And the roadshows are really not only just the EPS or the Eswatini payment switch educating consumers. There's an education drive, but we also have all the financial service providers there with us. So the various banks and the mobile money service providers are there, which means you can interact with all of them in one place to understand some of the service offerings, understand what the EPS offers by each institution. And we also have our partners in ESCCOM who are also helping educate in data security, how to avoid fraud, and all of this. And of course, there's fun and games and giveaways and all of these just to make sure that the engagement is lively with Eswatini.
I want to know if all banks are now using the system, and if there are challenges, what are those challenges?
Okay, so it's important to note that the EPS is for both the banks and the non-banks. So in terms of that deadline, it applies to all, which is both banks and maybe mobile money service providers who have not met the deadline. So this is why we use the term participants, just to cover both sides, because we've made them come together as one. Not all of the participants have made the deadline, which was 28th of February 2025. So there are technical issues that they face with their some of their infrastructure in terms of how to integrate, because there's a level of technical integration between what the switch offers. You can think of it as you are establishing a way of communicating between their systems and the EPS. So some of these systems take a bit more time to get aligned with the standards that the switch is expecting. So these are part of the items causing the delays. But I think I'd maybe pause there. We have 2 institutions that have not made that deadline as at now, with the third going live expected this week. So that's why I've sort of not included them.
Are these 2 that you're mentioning that haven't switched, are they banks, or maybe they are the mobile money and Imali platforms?
These 2 are banks that are not live on the EPS.
I want this to be clear to the consumer, to the end user of this system. Does it involve cross-border transactions? And if so, we saw the last time when the cross-border transactions was implemented for countries under CMA, there were challenges. Does this system involve cross-border transactions?
thank you for bringing that one to the fore. And I missed a big point with relation to EPS and what it's offering. So the initial products that we're offering are domestic, being that the payments we are speaking to on EPS are payments within Eswatini. So this is what EPS is offering. And then to your point on the cross-border, which was a CMA matter, common monetary area between Eswatini, South Africa, Lesotho, and Namibia, where there was a shift in the way payments took place in that particular space. So that change occurred in September last year. There's been a lot of, I'd call it collaboration, because on cross-border, you have to work with the various countries and align their own institutions with how they'll process payments. So there's been a lot of collaboration, and we've seen quite a good uptick or improvement in the nature of issues that were there, and the way the banks respond to them. And the payments are processing more seamlessly than they were, I think, when we deployed. But we do have one or two final matters that we believe, after we've concluded across the various countries, will make it quite seamless and look quite similar to the way they used to process before, other than the additional information that's required. From a switch point of view, the issues, so the switch added a certain layer to bring out the issues that may be faced. We call it a pilot. So the participants that we feel are ready to offer products to consumers first test in a production environment to just see whether there are any issues that are unexpected. It's only after that has occurred that we then permit them to go to the market. So this is one way of minimizing issues, but there will be issues from a consumer side, just from people adjusting to that. If you're sending, say, to an Imali provider like Eswatini Mobile Imali, that you don't send to a bank account, you send to a wallet name. So sometimes you'll get mismatches of that form, where it's about just understanding the fact that this side is an account which has an account has an account number, a wallet has normally a mobile phone number, but at times you're finding consumers mixing it up, which means these are the sort of failures we have. So part of it is just getting acquainted with it, but not necessarily core system issues, but just awareness, which is why the roadshows are helping us just to engage and inform the consumers on how to interact with these platforms.
You are saying, Mr. Gama, this is a fast payment system that Eswatini will now send money even on weekends and holidays, and that you are going to ensure that you educate business people as well as all Eswatini on using the system. Siyethemba ukuthi Eswatini atawuqinisekisa ukuthi le information that you will give them is internalized, so that bangadikhanzi sebama victims abo cyber crime. Siyabonga kakhulu ukuthi ube nathi ehlelweni lamuhla.
Deputy Director Operations Sabelo Gama with business journalist Nelsiwe in Nhlangama, just explaining how the payment switch exactly works. After the break, we're joined by Senator Zbia for today's financial market analysis. Don't go in.